The gunshot echoed across the Montana wilderness as Olivia Newsom crumpled to the floor of the abandoned barn, blood seeping through her fingers as she clutched her side. The year was 1876, and she had made the grave mistake of trusting the wrong man, a mistake that now seemed likely to cost her life. "You shouldn't have seen what you did, Olivia," sneered Victor Harmon, the wealthy cattle baron who had been courting her for the past month. "A woman ought to know when to keep her eyes averted." He pocketed his revolver with a casual air, as though he hadn't just shot a woman he'd claimed to admire. Olivia's vision blurred as she watched Victor mount his horse through the barn's open doors. The setting sun cast long shadows across the hay-strewn floor, illuminating the dust particles dancing in the air. She had only wanted to return the handkerchief he had left at her father's store, but instead had witnessed him and his men torturing information from a homesteader who refused to sell his land. "What about her?" one of Victor's men asked, nodding toward Olivia. "Leave her. She'll be dead by morning. No one comes to this old place anymore," Victor replied, his voice cold and dismissive. "Let the coyotes clean up the mess." The sound of hoofbeats faded as they rode away, leaving Olivia alone with nothing but pain and the soft cooing of barn owls in the rafters above. The bullet had torn through her side, missing vital organs, but causing enough damage to ensure a slow death without medical attention. She pressed her shawl against the wound, trying to stem the bleeding, but darkness was already creeping into the edges of her vision. As consciousness slipped away, Olivia thought of her father, who would wonder why she hadn't returned home, of her dreams to one day become a school teacher, of the life that was being stolen from her at just 22 years of age. The unfairness of it all brought tears to her eyes before the darkness finally claimed her. She didn't know how much time had passed when the sound of the barn door creaking open roused her from unconsciousness. Night had fallen completely, and the temperature had dropped considerably. Olivia tried to call out, but her mouth was too dry, and all that emerged was a faint moan. A lantern's glow approached, illuminating a tall figure. The stranger knelt beside her, his face coming into focus, weathered by sun and wind, with eyes that seemed to hold both kindness and wariness in equal measure. "Madam, can you hear me?" His voice was deep but gentle, his calloused hand reaching out to check her pulse. Olivia tried to speak again and managed a weak whisper. "Help." The stranger carefully examined her wound, his face grim. "Shot clean through. You've lost a fair amount of blood." He looked into her eyes, which were barely able to focus. "You're still breathing. That's enough." Without another word, he lifted her as though she weighed nothing, carrying her to his horse outside. Pain seared through her body at the movement, and she cried out, "I know it hurts, madam, but we need to get you someplace safe. I'm Owen Lawson. I've got a cabin not far from here." Owen secured her to his horse before mounting behind her, one strong arm holding her steady against his chest. As they rode through the darkness, Olivia drifted in and out of consciousness, aware only of the rhythmic motion of the horse and the warmth of the man keeping her from falling. When they reached the cabin, Owen carried her inside, laying her gently on a narrow bed. By the light of a kerosene lamp, he gathered supplies: clean cloths, a basin of water, a bottle of whiskey, and what looked like a sewing kit. "This is going to hurt, madam, but I need to clean that wound and stitch it up," he explained, pouring whiskey onto a cloth. "Can you tell me your name?" "Olivia," she managed to whisper. "Olivia Newsom." "Miss Newsom, I need you to be strong now. Bite down on this." He placed a folded leather strap between her teeth. What followed was the most excruciating pain Olivia had ever experienced. Owen cleaned the wound thoroughly, extracted bullet fragments with a pair of tweezers, and stitched both entry and exit wounds with steady hands. Throughout the ordeal, he spoke to her in a calm, reassuring voice, telling her about his cabin, his horse, anything to distract her from the pain. When he finally finished, he helped her drink some water mixed with a bitter tasting powder. Laudanum, he explained. It'll help with the pain and let you sleep. As the medicine took effect, Olivia studied the man who had saved her life. He was perhaps 30, with dark hair streaked with premature gray at the temples and eyes the color of the Montana sky. His hands, though rough from work, had been gentle while tending to her wounds. "Why did you help me?" she asked, her words slurring slightly from the medication. Owen tucked a blanket around her. "Any decent man would have. Not in my experience," she murmured before sleep claimed her. For 3 days, Olivia drifted between consciousness and deep sleep. Each time she awoke, Owen was there offering water, broth, or changing her bandages. On the 4th day, she woke with a clearer mind to find him sitting in a chair beside the bed, whittling a small piece of wood. "Good morning," he said, noticing her eyes were open. "You're looking better today. Fever's broken." Olivia tried to sit up but winced at the pain in her side. Owen quickly helped her, adjusting pillows behind her back. "Where exactly am I?" she asked, looking around the simple but tidy cabin. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, and the furnishings were sparse but functional. A table with 2 chairs, shelves with books and supplies, and the bed where she lay. "My place, about 10 miles from Clearwater Creek. Found you in old man Peterson's barn while I was tracking a mountain lion that's been after my livestock." He offered her a cup of water. "Want to tell me who put a bullet in you?" Olivia took a sip before answering. "Victor Harmon." Owen's expression darkened. "The cattle baron? Why would he want to shoot you?" "I saw something I shouldn't have. He and his men were hurting someone, a homesteader who wouldn't sell his land." She clutched the blanket tightly. "My father owns the general store in Clearwater. Victor had been calling on me. I went to return his handkerchief and—" Her voice trailed off. Owen nodded slowly. "Harmon's been buying up or forcing out every small rancher and homesteader in the territory. Man's got ambitions bigger than Montana itself. He'll come looking for me when he discovers I'm not dead," Olivia said, fear evident in her voice. "Let him try." Owen's tone was even, but there was steel behind the words. "Rest now. I'll ride into town tomorrow to let your father know you're safe." "No," panic flared in Olivia's eyes. "If you go asking about Thomas Newsome, Harmon will know I'm alive. He has men everywhere." Owen considered this, then nodded. "All right, but your father will be worried sick." "I know," Olivia said quietly, tears welling in her eyes, "but I'd rather him worry than be killed because of me." The next week passed slowly as Olivia regained her strength. Owen proved to be not just a skilled healer, but a surprisingly good cook as well. He made hearty stews and sourdough bread that reminded her of home. During the day, he tended to his small herd of cattle and horses, repaired fences, and hunted. In the evenings, he would read to her from one of his books, mostly adventure tales, and some poetry that seemed at odds with his rugged exterior. Olivia learned that Owen had come west after the Civil War, where he had served as a field medic for the Union Army. That explained his knowledge of treating wounds. He had homesteaded this plot of land 5 years ago, building the cabin himself and slowly acquiring livestock. "No wife?" Olivia asked one evening as Owen prepared dinner. "No." His reply was short and his back stiffened slightly. "Had a fiancée back in Pennsylvania. She married someone else while I was at war." He changed the subject quickly. "How about you? Anyone special waiting for you in Clearwater?" Olivia shook her head. "No. Most men in town either see me as old Thomas Newsome's daughter or a potential wife who can help in their business. Victor was different, or I thought he was." She looked down at her hands. "I was a fool." "You're not the first to be fooled by a charming facade," Owen said, his voice gentle. "Harmon's persuaded many a person to trust him before showing his true nature." As days turned into weeks, Olivia's wound healed enough for her to move around the cabin. She insisted on helping with cooking and mending, grateful to feel useful again. Owen taught her to play checkers in the evenings, and they would talk for hours by the fireplace. She told him about growing up in Clearwater Creek after her mother died when she was 12, leaving her to help her father run the store. He shared stories of his travels before settling in Montana. One morning, Owen returned from checking his traps with a newspaper from the nearest town. "Thought you might want some news," he said, handing it to her. "I didn't ask any questions, just bought it and left." Olivia eagerly opened the paper, hungry for information about the outside world after nearly a month in isolation. Her heart stopped when she saw the headline, "Local shopkeeper's daughter still missing, foul play suspected." The article detailed how Thomas Newsom was offering a substantial reward for information about his daughter's whereabouts. It mentioned that Olivia had last been seen leaving the store to return an item to Victor Harmon, who expressed his deep concern and had generously contributed to the reward fund. "He's mocking my father," Olivia said bitterly, tears streaming down her face. "Pretending to care while knowing exactly what happened to me." Owen sat beside her on the bench, his shoulder touching hers in silent support. "Your father hasn't given up hope. That's something." "I need to let him know I'm alive," Olivia said, wiping her tears. "But how?" "Victor watches the store. He'd intercept any message." Owen was quiet for a long moment, his brow furrowed in thought. "I have a friend, a Crow woman, who trades herbs with the settlers. She could get a message to your father without raising suspicion." Hope blossomed in Olivia's heart. "Could she? Would you ask her?" "I'll ride out tomorrow," Owen promised. "But Olivia, even if we get word to your father, you're not safe to return to Clearwater yet. Not while Harmon thinks he can silence you permanently." Olivia nodded, understanding the gravity of her situation. "I know, but at least Father won't think I'm dead." That night, as a spring storm lashed rain against the cabin's windows, Olivia couldn't sleep. She wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and moved to sit by the dying embers in the fireplace. Owen, who slept on a pallet near the door, stirred at the sound of her movement. "Can't sleep?" he asked, his voice husky with drowsiness. "Too much on my mind," she admitted. Owen rose and added wood to the fire, stirring it back to life. The flames cast a warm glow across his features as he sat in the chair opposite her. "Tell me what you saw that day," he said quietly. "What Harmon was doing to that homesteader." Olivia shuddered at the memory. They had him tied to a post in the barn. They were questioning him about some papers, deeds, I think. Victor kept saying the man had stolen them. But the homesteader, Jenkins was his name, he kept saying he had legal right to his land. She wrapped the blanket tighter around herself. "They were hurting him, Owen. Badly. When I gasped, they heard me, and Victor came after me." Owen's jaw tightened. "Jenkins disappeared 3 weeks ago. His place was burned to the ground." "Oh, God!" Olivia whispered, covering her mouth. "Did they kill him?" "No one knows for certain. Most folks assume he cut his losses and left," Owen said grimly. "But now I'm thinking otherwise." The revelation hung heavy between them. Olivia felt responsible somehow, though she knew it wasn't logical. "It's not your fault," Owen said, as though reading her thoughts. "Harmon's been terrorizing folks around here for years. Sheriff's in his pocket, and most people are too scared to stand against him." "What about you?" Olivia asked. "Aren't you afraid?" Owen's eyes met hers, firelight reflected in their depths. "I've seen enough death in the war to last several lifetimes. Makes a man look at fear differently." He paused. "Besides, some things are worth standing up for." The way he looked at her made Olivia's heart quicken. Over the past weeks, something had changed between them. What had begun as a rescuer-victim relationship had evolved into friendship, and now something more. She found herself noticing the way his shirt stretched across his shoulders when he chopped wood, how his eyes crinkled at the corners when he laughed, the gentleness of his hands when he checked her healing wound. "Thank you," she said softly, "for saving me. For everything." Owen reached across the space between them and took her hand. His palm was warm and calloused against her skin. "I'm glad I found you that night." Their eyes held, and Olivia felt a warmth spreading through her that had nothing to do with the fire. For a brief moment, she thought he might lean forward and kiss her, but instead, he squeezed her hand gently before releasing it. "Try to get some rest," he said, rising from his chair. "Tomorrow will be a long day." Olivia returned to bed, her hand still tingling from his touch, her mind filled with confused emotions. She had come to care deeply for this quiet, strong man who had saved her life and shown her nothing but respect and kindness. But was it merely gratitude she felt, or something more lasting? The next morning, Owen prepared to leave for the Crow settlement where his friend Morningstar lived. Before mounting his horse, he handed Olivia a revolver. "Keep this with you," he instructed. "I've shown you how to use it. Anyone comes around who isn't me, you hide or defend yourself. I should be back before nightfall." Olivia nodded, accepting the weight of the gun. "Be careful." "Always am," he replied with a small smile before riding away. The day passed slowly as Olivia kept herself busy with chores. She swept the cabin, prepared vegetables for dinner, and even ventured outside to feed the chickens in the small coop behind the cabin. The fresh air felt wonderful after being confined indoors for so long, and she lingered, enjoying the sunshine on her face. A movement at the edge of the forest caught her attention. Remembering Owen's warning, she clutched the revolver hidden in the pocket of her borrowed trousers and stepped back toward the cabin door. Relief washed over her when a deer emerged from the trees, followed by her fawn. They grazed peacefully for a few moments before sensing her presence and bounding away. Inside the cabin, Olivia found one of Owen's shirts that needed mending and settled by the window to work on it, keeping an eye on the path that led to the property. As she stitched, she thought about what the future might hold. She couldn't stay here forever, hiding from Victor Harmon. Eventually, she would need to either return to Clearwater or start a new life elsewhere. The thought of leaving Owen created an unexpected ache in her chest. The sun was beginning to set when she heard hoofbeats approaching. Peering through the window, she was relieved to see Owen returning, accompanied by a woman on a pinto horse. Olivia went outside to greet them, her heart lighter at Owen's safe return. "Olivia, this is Morningstar," Owen said as they dismounted. "She's agreed to help us." Morningstar was a handsome woman in her 40s with intelligent eyes and a dignified bearing. She wore a mixture of traditional Crow clothing and settler garments, and her long black hair was braided down her back. "So you are the one Owen pulled from death's door," Morningstar said, her English clear and only slightly accented. "He spoke truth, your spirit is strong." Olivia extended her hand. "Thank you for coming. I'm grateful for your help." Morningstar clasped Olivia's hand briefly. "I go to Clearwater Creek twice each moon to trade medicines. No one questions my presence. I will take your message to your father." Inside the cabin, Olivia wrote a letter to her father, explaining what had happened, but being careful not to include Owen's name or location. She told her father she was safe and healing, but that she couldn't return yet because of the danger Victor posed. She assured him she would find a way to come home when it was safe, and asked him to be patient and careful. Morningstar tucked the letter into a pouch of herbs. "I will see him alone. No one else will know." After sharing a meal together, Morningstar declined Owen's offer to stay the night. "I have a camp nearby. I prefer the open sky to walls." She looked meaningfully between Owen and Olivia. Besides, some conversations are best had in private. After she left, an awkward silence fell between them. Owen busied himself cleaning the dishes while Olivia stoked the fire. "What did she mean by that?" Olivia finally asked. Owen hesitated before answering. Morning Star sees things others don't. She told me, he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. She said our paths were meant to cross. Do you believe that? Olivia asked softly. Owen dried his hands on a towel and turned to face her. I've never put much stock in fate or destiny. I believe a man makes his own choices. He took a step toward her. But finding you that night 1 minute later and you might have been gone makes a man wonder. Olivia's heart pounded as Owen moved closer. What else did she say? That I look at you the way a man looks at his future. His voice was low, almost a whisper. And she's right. Owen reached up to touch Olivia's cheek, his fingers gentle against her skin. I know it hasn't been long, and maybe what you're feeling is just gratitude for saving your life. If that's the case, you need to tell me now, Olivia. She leaned into his touch. It's not gratitude, Owen. Or at least, not just gratitude. She gathered her courage. I've come to care for you deeply. The relief in his eyes was palpable. Slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, he lowered his head and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was tender at first, then deepened as Olivia responded, her arms encircling his neck. When they finally parted, both were breathless. I never expected this, Owen admitted, his forehead resting against hers. When I found you in that barn, all I wanted was to save your life. I never imagined you'd end up saving mine. Saving yours? Olivia asked, confused. I've been alone for a long time, Olivia. Thought that was how I wanted it. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. But these weeks with you, you've reminded me what it feels like to have someone to care for, someone who cares back. They spent the rest of the evening talking about possibilities, about feelings, about the future, uncertain as it was. When Olivia finally went to bed, it was with a heart full of hope, despite the danger that still loomed over her. 3 days later, Morning Star returned with news. Thomas Newsom had received Olivia's letter and was overjoyed to learn his daughter was alive. He had sent a reply, which Morning Star delivered along with disturbing information. Victor Harmon has men searching the countryside, she reported. They question everyone about a young woman with a gunshot wound. He tells people she is mentally unstable and ran away from her father's care. Says he only wants to help her. Olivia's hands trembled as she read her father's letter. He expressed his relief and love, along with a warning. Victor had been to the store almost daily, asking questions and making veiled threats. Thomas wrote that he had begun quietly liquidating some of his assets, planning to leave Clearwater as soon as he could arrange it. He wants to meet me in Helena, Olivia said, looking up from the letter. In 3 weeks' time. Says he'll start a new store there where Harmon has no influence. Owen and Morning Star exchanged glances. Helena is a 2-day ride from here, Owen said, but getting there safely. Harmon's men watch the roads, Morning Star confirmed. And they know your face now. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small package wrapped in cloth. Your father sent this for you. Inside was a locket containing a miniature portrait of Olivia's mother, along with $50, a substantial sum that represented most of her father's ready cash. We need a plan, Owen said, his expression serious. Harmon won't give up easily, especially if he thinks you can identify him as Jenkins's attacker. Over the next week, they formulated their strategy. Morning Star would spread rumors in nearby settlements about a wounded woman heading toward Wyoming territory, a false trail to lead Harmon's men away from Helena. Owen would escort Olivia to Helena by a circuitous route, avoiding main roads and settlements where they might be recognized. As they prepared for the journey, Olivia's side healed completely, leaving only a puckered scar as a reminder of her brush with death. Her feelings for Owen continued to deepen, as did his for her. They spoke of a future together, perhaps in Helena if her father approved, or further west if necessary to escape Harmon's reach. The night before they were to leave, Owen presented Olivia with a simple ring fashioned from a silver coin. "I'm not a wealthy man," he said as he slipped it onto her finger. "Can't offer you much beyond my heart and my hands to work for our future. But if you'll have me, I want to make a life with you, Olivia." Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at the ring. "You saved my life, Owen Lawson. Seems only fair I should spend it with you." Their kiss sealed the promise between them. But both knew that challenges lay ahead before they could truly be together. The journey to Helena was tense but uneventful for the first day and a half. They traveled mostly at night, resting during daylight hours in hidden camps, Owen selected with a seasoned traveler's eye. They avoided the main trails, instead following game paths and dried creek beds that Owen knew from his hunting expeditions. On the afternoon of the second day, as they crested a ridge overlooking a valley that would lead them to Helena, they spotted a group of riders in the distance. Owen quickly pulled Olivia into the cover of the trees. "Harmon's men," he whispered, recognizing one of the riders. "They're heading toward Helena." "They must have guessed where I'm going," Olivia said, fear clutching at her heart. "They'll find Father before we do." Owen's mind raced. "We'll have to circle around them, approach Helena from the north instead. It'll add half a day to our journey, but it's safer." As dusk fell, they changed course, pushing their horses harder than they had before. The detour took them through rougher terrain, but Owen navigated confidently even in the growing darkness. They rode through the night, stopping only briefly to rest the horses and eat a cold meal of jerky and hardtack. Dawn was breaking when they finally saw Helena in the distance, its buildings casting long shadows in the early morning light. They had successfully circumvented Harmon's men, but now faced a new challenge, finding Thomas Newsom in a town neither of them knew well, without alerting Harmon's associates who might be watching for them. The letter said he'd be staying at his cousin's boarding house on Pine Street, Olivia recalled as they approached the outskirts of town. "But we can't just ride in together. You're too recognizable as a stranger." Owen nodded. "I'll find a place to wait outside town. You go in alone, change your appearance first." He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a simple gray dress and bonnet that Morning Star had provided. "Put your hair up under the bonnet and walk with a slight stoop. Just get to the boarding house, find your father, and bring him out to meet me at the old mining shack we passed a mile back." Olivia changed behind a stand of trees, transforming from a woman in men's riding clothes to a demure figure in a plain dress. The transformation was remarkable, with her vibrant red hair hidden and her posture altered. She looked years older and entirely unremarkable. "Be careful," Owen said, cupping her face in his hands. "If anything seems wrong, anything at all, leave immediately and come back to me. Promise." "I promise," she said, kissing him quickly before mounting her horse. Olivia rode slowly into Helena, her heart pounding with every step. The town was bustling with morning activity miners heading to work, shopkeepers opening their businesses, women hanging laundry or sweeping doorsteps. No one paid particular attention to the plain-dressed woman riding a dusty mare down the main street. She found Pine Street easily enough and located the boarding house, a 3-story building with a small sign advertising rooms for respectable gentlemen. Tying her horse at a hitching post, she took a deep breath and entered. The front parlor was empty except for an elderly woman dozing in a rocking chair. Olivia approached her gently. "Excuse me, madam. I'm looking for Mr. Thomas Newsom. I believe he's staying here with his cousin." The woman's eyes fluttered open. "Who's asking after him?" "I'm a friend from Clearwater Creek. I have a message for him." The woman studied her for a moment, then nodded. "He's in the kitchen with Martha. Through that door." Olivia's heart raced as she crossed the parlor. She pushed open the kitchen door to find her father sitting at a table with a round-faced woman who resembled him around the eyes. They both looked up as she entered. "Father," Olivia whispered, removing her bonnet to reveal her red hair. Thomas Newsome stared in disbelief for a heartbeat before leaping to his feet with a cry of joy. He embraced Olivia fiercely, tears streaming down his weathered face. "My girl! My Olivia! You're alive, truly alive!" He held her at arm's length, examining her as though to ensure she was real. "When I got your letter, I hardly dared believe it." Martha, wiping tears from her own eyes, quickly closed the kitchen door. "Keep your voices down. There have been men asking about a young woman matching Olivia's description. They were here yesterday." Olivia quickly explained about Owen waiting for them at the mining shack. "We need to leave now, Father. Victor's men are searching for me. It's not safe here." Thomas nodded. "Martha has been helping me sell the store by telegraph. The new owners take possession next week." He looked at his cousin. "I'm sorry to leave you so suddenly, after you've been so kind." Martha waved away his concern. "Family comes first. Now go before those men return. They said they'd be back this afternoon." With rapid efficiency, Thomas gathered his few belongings while Martha packed food for their journey. Within 20 minutes, they were ready to leave. Olivia resumed her disguise, and Thomas wore a different coat and hat than his usual attire. They left town separately. Olivia first, then Thomas, half an hour later, on a horse borrowed from Martha's stable. They reunited at the mining shack, where Owen waited anxiously. The meeting between Owen and Thomas was initially tense. Thomas was grateful to the man who had saved his daughter's life, but wary of the obvious affection between them. "You want to marry my daughter?" Thomas asked directly, after Olivia explained their relationship. "A man we've known barely 2 months?" "Yes, sir," Owen replied without hesitation. "I love her, and I believe she loves me." "I do, Father," Olivia confirmed, taking Owen's hand. "He saved my life and asked for nothing in return. He's protected me, respected me, and shown me what true partnership can be." Thomas studied Owen thoughtfully. "Where do you propose to make this life together? Harmon's reach is long in these parts." "California," Owen answered. "I have a brother in Sacramento who writes that there's good land available in the valleys. I've saved enough to make a start there." Thomas nodded slowly. "As it happens, I was considering California myself. Martha has a son in San Francisco." A small smile crossed his face. "Perhaps we could travel together." The decision was made quickly. They would leave Montana Territory altogether, journeying west to California where Victor Harmon had no influence. Thomas would establish a new store, while Owen and Olivia would use their combined savings to purchase land for a small ranch. They spent that night in the mining shack, planning their journey and getting to know one another better. By morning, a sense of shared purpose had united them. They would travel south first, throwing off any pursuit before turning west toward California. As they prepared to leave, Olivia stepped outside for a moment of quiet reflection. The Montana sunrise painted the landscape in hues of gold and pink, illuminating the mountains she had called home all her life. Though she felt a pang at leaving, her heart was light with hope for the future. Owen joined her, slipping an arm around her waist. "Having second thoughts?" he asked gently. Olivia leaned against him. "No, just saying goodbye to the past." She touched the scar on her side. "Strange to think that being left for dead in that barn would lead me here to you, to a new beginning." Owen kissed her forehead. "When I found you that night and said, 'You're still breathing, that's enough,' I had no idea how much those words would come to mean. For both of us." They stood together, watching the sunrise, their shadows stretching long across the ground, two silhouettes that had once been separate, but now formed a single unified shape against the dawning day. 5 years later, Owen and Olivia Lawson stood on the porch of their ranch house in the fertile valley east of Sacramento, watching their 3-year-old son, Thomas, chase fireflies in the gathering dusk. Beside them, The elder Thomas Newsom rocked contentedly in a chair, his general store in town having prospered along with their ranch. "Letter came from Morning Star today," Owen said, handing Olivia an envelope. "Thought you'd want to read it right away." Olivia opened it eagerly. Morning Star wrote to them several times a year, keeping them informed of happenings in Montana. Her latest news brought a sense of closure they had long awaited. "Victor Harmon has been arrested," Olivia read aloud, "for the murder of Jenkins and 2 other homesteaders. Someone finally testified against him." She looked up at Owen, her eyes shining. "It's over. Really over." Owen wrapped his arms around her. "It was over the day we left Montana, but yes, it's good to know he'll answer for what he did." Olivia leaned into his embrace, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. The nightmare in the barn had nearly ended her life, but it had also led her to a love and happiness greater than she could have imagined. "You were right," she said softly. "That night in the barn, I was still breathing, and that was enough." She turned in his arms to face him. "More than enough to build this beautiful life with you." Owen's kiss was as tender as the first they had shared in his cabin years ago, but now carried the depth and certainty of a love tested by adversity and strengthened by time. As their son ran up to them, demanding to be lifted onto his father's shoulders for a better view of the fireflies, Olivia knew with absolute certainty that she had found her true home not in a place, but in the hearts of those she loved.